It's a thing of the past, but it's coming back. It is like history, our heritage, where we come from.
Frying potatoes in pine rosin is at least on the brink of being a thing of the past, but Jerry and Lisa are keeping the folk tradition alive right here in Portal, Georgia. After U.S. production of turpentine stopped domestically in 2001, the tradition almost disappeared too, but just a few years later, members of the Portal Heritage Society revived the almost extinct tradition.
And we started to do this so that we could tie it in with the Turpentine Festival and show how people used to cook food.
Pine rosin becomes a solid after cooling sets in. When laborers dipped tar in the woods, they needed a portable way of cooking, and a solid that turns to a liquid, then turns back to a solid, was a practical way of heating food. But cooking with pine rosin is just the beginning.
The old timers, they used it for medicine. They actually would take sugar and drop a few turpentine on it, and they would give it for the cough. Some people have been known to pour it on a swab and swab their throats out with.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Well, Shay has a sore throat. According to these ladies, it's going to take family and community involvement to keep folk traditions and methods, like cooking pine rosin, alive.
So I guess when she decides to hang it up, I'll still be doing it, and I'll just have to train somebody to help me, because it's a delicate process sometimes dealing with it.
But now, this almost dead folk tradition is breathing. And for the first time in years, there are limited amounts of pine rosin available for people wanting to keep history alive. And you can get it right here in Bullitt County from the Portal Heritage Society.
They did it to make a living, to buy food and shoes and clothes for the kids. And it was very cheap, to be honest with you.
Turpentine was originally used in early North American settlements as a binding agent for boats. But in the early to mid-1900s, dipping tar became a way of supplying jobs during a period of time where employment was scarce in the U.S. Because of the availability of pine trees, low production costs, and the variety of uses associated with turpentine, this natural resource was tapped into when we needed it most.
So back then, that's all they had to do was just go out and the neighbors, everything, neighbor farms and all, and just tap the trees and collect the gum. So there was plenty here.
And even with a seemingly endless supply of pine trees, there is such a limited availability of pine rosin in the U.S. that at last year's Turpentine Festival, Jerry wasn't able to make her rosin potatoes. And she wasn't sure about this year either.
And we thought we wasn't going to be able to do potatoes, rosin potatoes.
The rosin, shipped for last year's festival from Mexico, was held up at the border for 8 months, never making it to the 30th annual Catface Turpentine Festival. But now, because of a new method of extracting pine tar, much like the process associated with extracting maple sap for syrup, the trees are less vulnerable to the deadly pine beetle, and Jerry, along with other members of the Portal Heritage Society, are making sure that Southern folk traditions like frying potatoes and pine rosin aren't dictated by foreign markets.
And now there's an interest in going on down around Patterson about working trees again, also a market for using the rosin, so we don't have to go to Mexico to get pine rosin or tar, or we don't have to go to China and have it imported back in here for us to use for products that we can use from our own resources.
For the next few years at least, visitors to the Portal Catface Turpentine Festival can expect to find Jerry's rosin fried potatoes. In the meantime, you can expect Jerry to continue her fight to preserve folk history by bringing it back to life.